So it turns out this has been a pretty good year for tourism in Montreal. And of course, I'm talking year. The season really, as far as spring goes, is just barely getting underway right now. But I think it's fair to say when they decided to move the Grand Prix to May from June, there were a lot of skeptics at the time wondering, well, how are people going to react to that? Is it too early in the schedule? It turns out, I guess, if I can say it this way, it could not have gone any better. Yves Lalumière is president and CEO of Tourism Montreal, and he is on the line. Yves, first of all, thank you for coming on with us today. I know it's a busy time for you, but let's go back to that decision on the Grand Prix. I think we may have talked about it at the time, moving it to May. A lot of people, as I said, a little skeptical. How did it turn out?
You're absolutely right, Aaron. As always, it was a lot of people were skeptical. The reality is we were a bit surprised. We knew that on a midterm basis we would do very well because we need to move the big conferences that we sell. But the fact is that the May, with the Canadians being there in the playoffs and combine this with the Grand Prix, it turned out that May we produced 45% more revenue, and for the Grand Prix moving into May, even in May we produced 13% increase in terms of demand and 15% in terms of revenue. So that was quite surprising for us. And I've been in 4 negotiations dating to Bernie Ecclestone, and this negotiation we had was a very good win for F1, a very good win for Montreal as well. So a bit surprised and extremely good economic result for us.
So going forward, though, I mean, obviously, if you change the schedule, it's going to stay this way for a while. Are there any other plans on changing anything with respect to the Grand Prix?
No, the good thing that we won with this negotiation is the ability to have 2 years in advance the date. Plus, we had another 4 years up to 2035, which we wanted to secure that because, as you know, there's many cities that want a Grand Prix all over the world. So no change in place. We will have the last 2 weekends of May, and which is good because with the Canadians making the playoff over the next 3-4 years. That makes for a very robust May, and it starts off our summer in a very good position.
Can I ask, is there any way to try to, I understand, yes, it's the Grand Prix. We know that it's been a very successful event in the city, regardless, even before, obviously, we changed dates. How do you account for the success this year? And I know you brought up the Canadians being in the playoffs, which I'm sure will bring some people into town, but I saw the numbers for hotel accommodation. They're better than they've ever been before, it would seem.
Yeah, it's going to be a record summer and a record year for us. What it did as well by moving the date is that it freed up June, which is the festival. And for some of our tourists or visitors, it was a bit expensive to come in June to see the Franco and the Jazz Festival, Just for Laughs as well, which is a fantastic festival. So now what we're seeing in June is a very strong month of June, which is 5% better in terms of revenue in hotels than last year with the Grand Prix. So this is another surprise for us.
Yeah, so your spillover now is beyond the Grand Prix. What would have been June because of the Grand Prix, you're still seeing anyway.
Yeah, we're still seeing an increase, which we didn't plan. We didn't forecast an increase. We actually forecast a decrease between 5 and 10%, and even then we would be happy with that. But now what we have is a June, a May that produced 80%. In terms of hotel occupancy, restaurants are happy. And then June is going to be similar, and July is going to be fantastic this year with many very large conferences in town. And the Grand Prix also, Aaron, allow me to say that I had discussion with the F1 executives, and they were very surprised and very happy with the Friday number, which we had 100,000 spectators at the Grand Prix, which is one of the best in the world. So just wanted to share that with you when there's good news like that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I was going to ask you, how do we rank up there with other cities and other Grand Prix? Do you know?
Yeah, we know for sure. We want to continue to have some seatings. It was full house this year, actually at the Grand Prix, despite the fact that we had an increase in terms of the ticket price. And the Friday we're amongst the top, and then when we look at the Saturday and the Sunday, we in the top as well. The objective is to continue to be in the top third of the races, and the pilots were very happy. A lot of sharing in terms of the social media this year. We had Charles Leclerc in the mountain and so on. The following for us is very, very good.
So, Yves, I know obviously where the tourists come from. We would have imagined many of them, the most, I guess, would be coming from the U.S. The dollar is very, very weak. It's been that way for a while. What is the breakdown? Where are they coming from? And is it different for Grand Prix than anything else?
Let me address, Aaron, the fact, the dollar has always been around that. You're at 1.4 now. People have choices. They could go to Mexico, they could go to Toronto. So they choose Montreal for a good reason, because our festival, because the Grand Prix, the sports events, and so on. Second, what we're looking at is 5% more Americans this year than last year. Last year we dropped 5. So we're recouping last year, and so far May has been very good. European, plus 5 to 8%, and Canadians love Montreal, as you know. So we're looking at overall at least 5 to 6% increase in demand this year, and so far much better than we expected.
Are we, by the way, reaching out? When I say we, Tourism Montreal, you're reaching out, beyond the U.S. to Europe, to other places around the world?
Yes, we have now, we have, 159 destinations. We doubled the number of destinations landing at the airport. So, Air Canada, Transat, and the airport's done a good job with us as well in making sure that we diversify the number of markets so we don't rely only on the U.S. The fact is that Europe is doing very well, we're a hub. When you compare us to Boston and New York, that type of thing, we're amongst the biggest city in terms of number of seats inventory. And this year we're looking again at an increase in terms of number of seats being sold into Montreal. So very, very well in terms of performance to Europe.
I will point out one last thing. I found this interesting. Typically when we talk about tourism in Montreal, we think about the city or downtown. The numbers that I saw for, hotels literally across, even off island, all of them were up, right?
Yeah, you're pointing out this. I forgot to say that during the Grand Prix weekend, this was a record this year. For the 4 days of the Grand Prix, we actually had 95% hotel occupancy. And don't forget, we got 24,000 rooms in Montreal to sell. So it's almost like a Bell Center completely full, every day. So this was a record. And when you look at the Saturday was 98, that the peak was 98.5. Same thing with the Canadians game, 98.5% occupancy in our hotel, and same thing for our restaurant. So definitely, off to a very good summer. That will be a record year this year.
By the way, you want to tell people what this represents in dollars, in tourism money to the city?
Well, we're talking about $5 billion, but, it's always a strong number, and, people don't associate with big numbers. What we want is we want to make sure that the downtown, we try to make sure that people go in every month into Montreal, spending more money on the winter now, so it's not only about the summer. But people, this, Aaron, people tend to underestimate the value of the visitor economy. And, this is a good news story for Montreal and for its residents as well, and commerce.
I did think one last thing before I let you go, and I've never really thought about that before, but I'm sure you must. People who come here, who visit here, do we know what percentage of those people come back? So they're coming to Montreal for the first time. They either like the city or don't. What percentage of them come back?
Yeah, we measure everything. Good question, Aaron. And, 93% of people that we ask want to come back within the next 5 years. And the satisfaction level is 93% as well, same number, with 70% say they're very satisfied. As you know, Montrealers are tougher on ourselves than the visitor. The visitor really love us, and there's no complex to have about this.
Well, if we don't beat ourselves up, who will? Yves, I thank you so much. Congratulations. Appreciate the time today.
Thank you, my friend. Nice to see you.
Good care.
Thank you from you. Bye-bye.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.